Good morning. Welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm Dan Seely. It's great to be here. It is Friday. Friday is Rapid Fire Friday when we try to move very quickly through the phone calls and take as many as we possibly can. We take calls for an hour and 45 minutes. So I have been getting yesterday, I think it was it yesterday or Wednesday? I don't know, one of those days. I don't know. I said to my administrative assistant, I don't know what I did. Is what I said, but I just got hammered with email, and I'm already so far behind. So, if you've got a question or you emailed me a question, now today is a good time to call. We don't have any guests. We're going to get right to the phones after this first segment. Cue your call up. If you dial in right now, you'll be the first caller we take. 866, I assume the lines are open, 866-300-9298, 866-300-9298. If you got a financial question, you want to comment or ask me a question in reference to the economy, where we're headed. Speaking of the economy and where we're headed, you're going to find a very interesting article that I wrote in my newsletter. It is not going to be posted at christianpress.com yet. I may post it after my newsletter comes out. But get the newsletter. If you don't get it, it's a free email newsletter. You can go to financialissues.org. That's our ministry. That's our ministry website, financialissues.org, and you can sign up for that email newsletter. We don't need a lot of information. Doesn't cost anything. You just need your email address to put in there. We don't need any. We just put in the minimum of what you have to. That's fine. We don't collect information from it. All we do is just add you to our list of the tens of thousands of people that have been getting that for a long time. So 866-300-9298 right now. And if you want that, I am going through, I went through a lot of issues in this article. It's a fairly long article, longer than I'd like. But at the same time, I went through a number of different scenarios. You're going to come away with it feeling a little queasy in your stomach when you read it. But all I'm trying to do is point out the mathematics of all of the things that I talk about on a regular basis and what that is going to lead to. And there is, I am still holding to the position, though you'll see in this article, I probably upped it a little bit, that you have to have a significant portion in cash. And I lay out the reasons why. And I talk about what is going to happen in the future with the economy. Now, look, I hope I'm wrong. I mean, this is one area where no matter what, I really don't want to be right. I just can't imagine that I would be wrong based on the numbers. So take a good look at it. Very interesting article. Check it out in my newsletter, and you can go to financialissues.org to find out, to read that. Check it out. Not to read the article, but to sign up for the newsletter. Russia's shares, Russia Stock Exchange today went down again. Remember, they're already down about 20% on the year. They can't afford it. They're blaming it on some additional sanctions. At the same time, we have the EU saying that they're a little weary of imposing harsh sanctions on Russia. Well, join the club. The U.S. is too. They're just not saying it publicly. But the EU is saying they're a little weary of imposing these harsh sanctions. Well, they ought to be, because I got to believe that everybody in the Eurozone appreciates the fact that they can run some heat in their house every once in a while, or put their stove on if it's a gas-fired stove, or have hot water if it's, look, they get a significant portion of their natural gas from Russia. It would create havoc if Russia then imposes the same sanctions on them. I don't know how Russia can do that because they need the money. But nevertheless, Putin might do it. There's also a very interesting article that indicates, and I think it was in Bloomberg, talking about, look, the idea that Russia is going to be happy with Crimea and walk away, forget it. It's not even a possibility. The idea here is to get all of the Ukraine. Now, there is a vote, a presidential election on May 23rd, and I think we better watch it very closely, because to see what kind of influence the Russian troops, so to speak, have on that election. It's going to be very interesting. But we're we'll have to watch it very closely because it is going to have an impact. Fitch, the ratings agency, you know how I feel about rating agencies, not real fond of them. Don't have a lot of confidence in them or a lot of faith in ratings agencies. They're wrong pretty much 80% of the time. Rating agencies totally missed just little things like Lehman Brothers collapse. Just little things about the economy and other collapses through other companies and governments that they were rating. So they're certainly not, they have no credibility. To me, they didn't have a whole lot of credibility before all this. They certainly have no credibility now, but nevertheless, they still do their thing. And they have Fitch lifts the U.S. rating outlook to stable and remain the AAA rated country that we are. Now, as you know, just because we're AAA rated, these rating agencies use totally different sets of standards to rate a government than they would a company. Oh, no, Dan, they don't do that. They don't say they do that. They say it's the same standard. Well, if it's the same standard, we would not be rated AAA. Because even in their comments, Fitch says that even though they are upgrading, they're saying that we are going to peak this year, that we are going to have a gross debt of about 100% of our GDP. Oh, 100% of GDP in our debt by the end of this year. But here's what they say. But it's then going to decline for the next 4 years. And that's why we're keeping our AAA. Now, I'm not sure of the numbers, the mathematics that Fitch is looking at, but they're living in a twilight zone because if we stay on the current course that we are on, there's not going to be a decline in our debt. Not to mention, we still, don't forget, have an unfunded liability. That is a liability, something that we have an obligation to pay, kind of like debt, that we do not have the funds to pay, of $100 trillion. That's not the 18 trillion of debt that the debt clock keeps ringing up. We have an unfunded liability of $100 trillion. And there is no signs on the horizon that the government is going to slow down spending. Now, if there is a sea change in Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, and on the mentality and the ideology of spending our way into prosperity, if that changes, then there's a possibility that things could begin to turn around a bit. But that's going to take a leadership change. Now, I really don't like using the word leadership when I'm talking about Washington, D.C., but I have no choice. A leadership change, if you call what we have to change leadership. But here's the problem. We are going to replace it with exactly what? Are we going to replace it with more politicians? More politicians that politicize everything that comes down the pike, that are in the pocket of all the same lobbyists all the leadership is in the pockets of now? Somehow they are going to go from typical politician to great leaders? Really? Come on. Our deficit and our problem is in our leadership. It's not just a monetary deficit. Fitch, at the same time, cut the rating on Russia. You mean to tell me the fundamentals of Russia are worse than the U.S.? Well, they're probably, from an economic standpoint, they're not so hot. They're a third world nation. But nevertheless, they're cutting Russia's, which they should, and they're citing the sanctions and their struggles they're having in their markets and their economy and all those kinds of things. We shall see. Hey, the U.S. Senate is investigating Caterpillar. Yes, Caterpillar. Caterpillar apparently has been accused of, I don't know if you can call it accused, but in fact, in 2009, it all started when they started to shift profits offshore to offshore companies. And according to the charges, they have avoided more than $2 billion worth of U.S. taxes. They've used some Bermuda structure involving some shell companies to return profits to the U.S. without requiring taxes. Remember, Caterpillar gets over 50% of their profits. It is an American company, gets over 50% of their profits from the international market, primarily Asia. Caterpillar is a company that I believe, from a financial perspective and a fundamentals of the economy, I feel like I know pretty well. It is a company that has been on my list since I started a list, I think, but a long, long time. I dropped them over their support for the gay leadership of the Boy Scouts. They have not had the backbone to call me or talk to me about it. I did talk to somebody there who assured me they would honor my wishes for the conference call. For some reason, they never returned my calls after that. They didn't want to talk about it. My response to Caterpillar was, why can't you guys just do what you do, make good tractors? Why are you getting involved in the culture war? Are you bored? You're bored with making tractors and making money? That is kind of, I guess that eventually gets kind of tiresome. But no, they elect to move over to the culture war. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But Caterpillar, it looks like they're going to be investigated for the $2 billion that they've talked. Isn't it interesting? I wonder how they feel about supporting all those liberal candidates. I wonder how they feel about how much they've loved Obama and his IRS and all his rest of his cabinet. I wonder what they're thinking right about now. I said to Twyla Brace when she was on yesterday that, you know what, I don't have a lot of sympathy for insurance companies. Obviously, they deserve everything they get. I said that the day Obamacare was announced. They deserve everything they get because they were cheerleaders for this program. They supported this president, not only financially, but supported this whole idea with these are supposed to be smart businessmen. These are leaders of business who were so naive that they couldn't see through their ideology clear enough to understand that their companies, if this progresses the way I believe this president wants it to progress, that their own companies are at risk of being gone or nationalized. They didn't even have enough foresight. These are leaders of major corporations to see that we're headed into nationalism or socialism or socialized medicine, and they were going to be obsolete and a thing of the past. So any pain that they suffer, they deserve because it's self-inflicted. They had opportunities to stand up. I know they bought in to the Gestapo-like tactics of this administration and were afraid to stand up to this president. But had they united and stood up, we probably wouldn't be here today. So they deserve everything they get. 866-300-9298. We're going to get to the phones. We're going to stay with the phones. It's Rapid Fire Friday. For the next hour and 45 minutes, we're going to take your calls, your questions about your financial situation, maybe a question about the economy, maybe a comment. But we're going to do that right after this break, and we're going to stay with them. 866-300-9298.